Now I've gotten to the end of my 6 rows with a thin yarn, and to finish this off, I just want to tuck this string in. That's kind of a bit of string, so I'm going to make it just a little bit shorter. Don't cut too close to your warp strings. You don't want to cut through those. And then I'm going to take this, I'm going to wrap it around because it doesn't go around yet. Wrap it around the end piece. But instead of going opposite, I'm actually going to do the same thing that the last row was doing because I want it to blend in. So I'm just going to match up with the last row was doing for a couple of stitches or a couple of over-unders. Okay, and then that'll tuck in. I'm going to take this little tail and just put it through to the back, and it'll stick out the back of our weaving, and I'll take care of that later. All right, so that is how we take care of an end piece. Then when we start the new one, okay, I've got all kinds of different things here. I've got cut up fabric, cut up felt. I've got a big spool of this like ribbon type stuff. I'm gonna start with some fabric that I cut very thin. When I start this one, I want to tuck in this first piece as well, but I'm going to start from the other side. So this time, I'm going to look at what the last row was doing, and I'm going to do the same thing that the last row was doing. The last row is going under, under, and that's just for the tail piece to get that started. And then the tail is incorporated, so I'm going to, going back, doing the opposite of the last row, and then want it to arc up, and then I can go ahead and slide it down. A lot of people will use a comb to slide this down. I've even seen people use a fork to help slide it down. This little starting piece, I'm just going to kind of tuck that in a little bit more. And I'm going to continue to weave with this long, thin piece of fabric for at least one more row. I might have enough for 2. Another material that you can use that's a little non-traditional is old plastic bags that you get from the store. So this I've actually used before. I have this large mat. This is all completely made out of plastic bags. I've cut them and crocheted them. This is part of a project. Volunteers who get together and weave these plastic mats. They are for homeless people to sleep on because they're very lightweight and yeah, they're really awesome. So I'm working on one of those right now, but I thought, why not weave with a plastic bag? So the way that we go about that is we simply cut the handles off first. And I'm doing this with one hand because I'm holding the camera. So we just cut across, okay? And we get rid of those handles. Now, to weave, we want one long piece that we can weave with. So if I take my scissor and I simply cut in at the top of the bag, and I cut around, and I'm cutting about 1 inch. And I can just keep spiraling around and around and around and get a very, very long piece of plastic. You want to keep it about the same thickness, but it's certainly not going to be perfect. So I have already done some weaving with another plastic bag that I cut up. So it gets kind of mushed down. This one might even be a little bit thinner than 1 inch. But I got a very, very long piece from one bag. It works really nicely to weave with. You do have to kind of crunch, wrap, ball it up to get it through over under, but it works pretty well if you're only working with one bag at a time. It also has this fun little gradation and detail. One thing I like to do when I'm using a regular yarn is I use a tapestry needle to help me out. So if you got your bag of supplies, you'll have one of those. In order to thread yarn really easily onto the tapestry needle, I just cut myself a long skinny piece of paper and I stick the paper around the yarn, and then I thread the paper through the eye of the needle. It slides through really fast, and that way you can go through and you can do the over under quite a bit easier and faster.